All right. Hey everyone, good morning. Melissa here. I am exhausted. Hopefully, hopefully I'm not going to be looking like I'm too tired. I think I got a gray from just the extra work last night. Who knows? But anyways, I want to talk about some things. So, let's talk about learning from older women. You should always have older women in your life. You should, because as you learn from them, you should also be mentoring younger women or have younger women in your life. So this is the way it's always worked in society. We've always had a tribe as women. We should always have women in our lives to help us along, help us grow. So last night I worked and I want to talk about a couple things there, personal things. Um, I had this new guy say to me, "Holy cow, like you are a work beast." I'm like, "Me?" He goes, "Yeah." So I am someone who works really hard. Wherever you find whatever I do, I usually work hard at it. Once I put my mind to something and I want to do something, I will work hard at it. So along those lines, I will be taking a class to invest in my YouTube channel. I did watch some clips from this guy who talked about making sure your tags in your YouTube channels are like the same to help you grow. So I have been picking up a little bit of hints here and there, but I will be working on my channel because it's something that I want to invest in. I want to be able to get out there and help women more. So, anyways, we don't want all this knowledge to go to waste, right? Everything I have been given, I feel like, on Rocky, the movie Rocky, Mickey's like, I want to give you everything that I know. Everything that I got, I want to give it to you. And that's kind of how I feel. I've been blessed. God has blessed my life abundantly. Whether it was growing up with, a huge family that I absolutely loved. Um, when my Uncle Bill died, it really, really just broke my heart because he was in my life since I was a little girl. I loved my uncle. I loved, just hanging out with my uncles. So many good memories. My Uncle Steve, just memories, football with him, it just so cool. And, along these lines, I'm going to say something. So, I was talking last night to, some of the women at work, and um, we were talking about, women who at 18, 19, my mother had me like 18, 19, right? She had me, and women back then had women very early. And we were talking about how some girls started like at 14. 14 is kind of young to start, right? But back in the day, that's kind of how it was. If you got pregnant, you just kept your baby, and abortion was not a big thing. So I was talking about how my mother was not ready. She said I wasn't ready. She was the one who really wasn't ready. She had drinking problems because of my grandmother, with the life she had in the project. She was working in the mills. She had to kind of hand over her paycheck to my grandmother to put food on the table for, like her 9 brothers and sisters. Everyone has told me your mother had it rough, right? So she wasn't ready, but I did say I had a family who took care of me. And you don't have to be ready. Okay, so my mother wasn't ready, but I remember all along, ever since I was a little girl, Easter was special to me. It still is. I remember my mother has pictures, and I remember dressing up in a beautiful. My mother always dressed me very well, extremely clean, dressed well. I had Easter dresses. My grandmother, although dirt poor, she always found a way to have money for us to have gifts. So all those memories, I mean, I would go over there and, we'd have the blown up little Easter bunnies. Me and my brother, we'd have, Easter candy. I remember my Uncle Steve, me and my brother getting thrown on the bed, wrestling with us, football, almost ripping my uncle's favorite shirt, you know, playing football, tackle football. my Aunt Kim in a trailer in Munn's Trailer Park. We used to go over there in Epsom, hang out over there, see my grandfather. My grandfather was extremely busy with 3 jobs plus his 10 kids. But he always made time, for everybody. I don't know how he did it, but he did. And, he used to take me up to the beach with my Aunt Kim and my Aunt Linda up at Weir's Beach. We were always over there. They rented a place and I got to stay up there one day with them. He fell asleep on the hood of the car watching the fireworks. I'll never forget him sleeping while the fireworks were going off. It's like, how does someone sleep during that, right? But he was extremely busy. Just a ton of good memories with my family, a ton. Growing up, having a lot of fun, everything. So even there was a picture, I don't know if my grandmother stole it from me. She had come over one day and it was missing. I don't know what happened, but there was a picture of me and my Aunt Kim. She must have been like 7 or something, and I'm, a little toddler laying in bed with her. And, we're about 10 years apart, so she was probably actually closer to maybe, actually, I think we're like maybe a little less than 10 years apart. So she's, just a kid herself sleeping on the bed, and I'm laying with her on the bed. And I remember her watching me, and I remember her and my Aunt Linda, we would walk down Elm Street back in the day when it wasn't the way it is now. And there were these stores, and, Linda, I remember them, holding our hands and lifting us up over the puddles and playing games with us, and just so many good memories. And, my Uncle Steve, we used to go over, for Halloween for, one year we went over, we were bobbing apples. Don't tell me how we did this. I mean, the family didn't have a lot of money, but we always had money to have fun. So we were over there bobbing apples, and I remember my grandmother moved constantly. And she had just moved into this place, and, we went up the stairs, this huge staircase, and the roof had an extra layer over it, and my Uncle Steve was telling me there were bats up there. And of course I believed him, not sure if it was true, but it was Halloween. He scared me to death with that. Watching Donnie and Marie, the Osmond show with my Aunt Kim. I actually think he was my first crush, and my Aunt Kim, everyone was crushing on Donnie Osmond. So, just tons of memories, just tons, and always going to my grandmother's growing up, and my great grandmother's in Hooksett. But at my grandmother's, it was always all the kids had gifts, even if it was like a dollar store thing, we all had gifts. My grandfather dressed up as Santa, or my great grandfather would dress up as Santa, hand out gifts to everybody. I mean, just the whole entire family took care of one another, right? So that's what's really missing in society nowadays. And I was talking to someone who was saying, he was saying, oh, if you go over to this place, there's tons of homelessness. If you go to Denver, and we're talking about the reasons why. And I really think it's the breakdown of the family. So, as I was talking to one of the older women, she was saying to me that her mother wanted a baker's 12, baker's dozen. And her baby was up in her rib. So she was like, that's it, that's it. I've had enough. And I remember my grandmother, maybe not had enough, but I'm not going to have another one. And I remember my grandmother was like, after 10, that was it. She's like, I had enough. And her father, strict Catholic, wanted her to have more. So, what I'm trying to say is, I hear all these stories, I hear stories from older women about back in the day, back in the day this, back in the day that, and, back in the day we didn't have a lot of food, and we didn't have, a lot of stuff, and people were so much happier in so many ways. They just accepted, like, we didn't have a lot, but we were happy, or we didn't have much, but we made it, or, you hear stories of how and these are funny stories, you know. I enjoy being around a lot of older women who tell me stories. And you know, I remember one lady was sharing with me how, you know, her and her husband got a vehicle for $500, and the gasket rings or something had a problem, and they put some kind of fluid or something in it, the vehicle, to help. And just that frugality. And even my husband's mother was telling me a story before of how they had very little money when they started off, and I think they had like $5, and it was a choice between hamburger to eat or a Megabucks ticket. And uh, my husband's father chose the Megabucks ticket, and to this day, last I knew, she was like, I can't believe he didn't buy burger. You know, they needed something to eat. So, you know, it's just these stories that people remember. They can live off the stories and tell them over and over and over again, and it makes for, you know, so much of a bonding when you can share these stories, you know. Or I remember, you know, my husband saying, oh, he had to take nails out of the trees. I'm like, what do you mean you had to take nails out of the trees? He's like, if I had nails when I was a kid and I, you know, I went and used them, I had to go reuse them and take them out of the tree. And I'm like, this is when we were dating. And I'm like, you're kidding. What do you mean you had to take nails out of a tree and reuse them? I've never heard of such a thing. So, there are a lot of stories with poverty. So, poverty doesn't have to be a bad thing. But, you know, people had their houses, and they had food on the table, they had their houses. As far as other things, they usually had to go without. They had to be creative. They had to find ways to get what they wanted other than the basics, right? So, last night, and this was sad to me, but last night, and I'm not saying this to boast or to be nosy, someone was pretty rude saying, oh, you're being nosy, when I asked about what's going on with this homeless kid. Because you see a kid, right, on the street, and that's alarming, more alarming than an adult to me. But so I'm working, and this older man comes up, elderly man, and he's like, yeah, I want, you know, I want this, and it should only be $1. It's advertised on TV. And I'm like, okay, hold on. So I got the manager, and she's like, oh, you need the app. And he had come all the way over to the store. He was an old timer. He didn't have the app. He's not into phones. He's not into tech. Most older people aren't. And he's like, I'm on Social Security and I don't get paid again until, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 days or something like that. And I'm like, well, you know what? I've got a phone, and let me download the app and see what we can do. So as I did this, the coupon was only for one burger. And he's like, you know, he wanted two. He didn't order a drink. He was just hungry, right? So I'm like, you know what? I got it. Don't worry about it. I got it. And so I took out my, you know, my card and took care of it. And he's like, why are you doing this for me? And he goes, thank you so much. Why are you doing this? And I said, because I know what it's like. I know what it's like when you're pinching pennies, when you're trying to figure out where your next meal's going to come from. I know what it's like. And he's like, thank you so much. And he goes, here, take the $4 I have. And I'm like, no, I don't want it. I don't want it. You keep it. So, you know, there are so many people hurting out there. I mean, when I'm out there waiting on people, even yesterday I had a girl come up to me, and she goes, my mom doesn't have much money. Can we just pay for the cup? Can we just pay for this cup? And I'm like, it's a refill cup. And yeah, get some more. And she's like, well, it was only for water, you know? And I'm like, don't worry about it, you know? If I have extra food, which I had extra food given to me last night that's going to the homeless, I'm like, don't throw it away. I will take it. Um, Help other people. And this is what I'm going to be talking about with my nonprofit too. Kind of having like a family hub. The families need to be rebuilt. We have community resources, but a lot of times those are very strict guidelines to jump through the hoops, honestly. So we need something that's more family oriented in our communities, more something like churches and community resources put together. We need families again. The breakdown of families are just astonishing. Porn is part of this problem. Obviously, the main problem is the sin in our hearts. We can have people who even people who are homeless who find a job, and they work, but yet there's no foundation of, people skills, and there's no foundation of godliness, and we need to bring back the basic family values in life. So we need something with, teaching the Bible, teaching people how to change their lives, how to live for God. So many people are not going to church right now, and I think that's a huge problem too. People just are not living their lives for God. So, so we need to rebuild. We need to rebuild society and help people. And, so I think it's important, and I've always done this. I jumped into church and I had the older woman always around me. The older women with their stories, the older women teaching the younger women. I mean, I had women mentoring me as I walked with my first two kids everywhere. I had an older woman mentoring me about stuff about God. I had an older woman mentor me about finances. I mean, she even let me pick stuff from her garden. I had older women teaching me just about, training your children. Older women and a mom to mom, a mops, other women around, how do they raise their kids? On and on it goes. So there is like this vast knowledge out there that is being taken away from us. I mean, we have this new society coming up, right? With society constructing a certain agenda they want, and we are losing a lot of the old school thinking. We are losing, the older wisdom that people had. Somebody had said to me before, oh, when people get old, they just farm you out. They just put you in a nursing home and farm you out. And I think it's true. I think it's true that people, they get a certain age and people just want them, basically dead. And we're even seeing now that a senior is now 50 something years old. And it's like, what? I'm like, you're not a senior at 50 something years old. This is when life begins. Honestly, midlife is like, it's time to start doing stuff that you want, that you haven't gotten done in life. It's a great time in life to get a lot done. So you're not old. You're not old in your 50s or 60s. You're really not. Not until you hit like your 80s. And then you can start slowing down more. So, we want to just take glean all the knowledge from the older people. Don't be afraid to be around older people. I mean, I've watched documentaries about, people who have gone to war. I've had elderly neighbors around me talk about their lives. This is what we want. And then every generation has like passed down the baton. That's what you want, right? You're gathering knowledge and wisdom, and then you pass it down to your community so that other people can benefit from your knowledge. So we want to live right. We want to turn our lives around. I think that is one of the biggest tools people are missing too. You have a choice every day how you are going to live. Are you going to follow God, or are you going to follow your own ways? And those everyday steps is what brings you to a good life. It's not just, oh, I need money and then I'll have a good life. That's not it. It's everyday decisions that give you a good life. So that's what I got for now. I just find it very interesting that we have previously, as women, lived in a society where women wanted children. Most mothers, grandmothers had 10, 12, 14 kids. Now we see women not even being able to have one. They don't even want their kids, which is so sad. So we need to turn things around. We need women's hearts to want kids again. To some countries pay for women to have kids. I think that's a good idea in some ways. You should be able to have enough money in many ways to have kids, but even if you don't, back in the day, families didn't have money and they had a lot of kids. So, we're missing some equations here if we're not willing to have kids, whether we have money or whether we don't. And my grandmother was dirt poor. A lot of people were poor. And I think the key was the whole family pitched in. And usually, as they got older, they had stuff. Usually, like my grandparents, everyone used to say, oh, they would have had so much if they stayed together. And my other grandparents who did stay together had quite a bit. So it's usually, a process of getting through having a bunch of kids, having family help you along, and then later you have a lot and you're usually able to give to your grandkids. And that's kind of how it usually works unless divorce interrupts that. So we need to get back to that. We need to get back to like the Waltons and living simple lives and enjoying the little things in life. So okay, thanks for joining me, guys. I've got the tow truck coming and my vehicle is going. So I loved my vehicle and I am saying goodbye. Just too much money, wanting to be sunk into it. It's not going to do me any good. So they're going to give me cash and it's going to be a quick goodbye. Right when the garage was like, you need this and you need that and you need this, I'm like, just, yeah, we're not gonna fix it. Just make a logical decision and then go forward with it. Get your stuff in gear. Find out who's going to take it. Don't let it be a sentimental thing because you like your vehicle. Okay, thanks for joining me, guys.